Okay, perfect. Okay, so welcome to the first workshop of MURPH. I know there's a lot more students in the program. There should be around 21, but again, as I mentioned, for those people online, there are some of you online and in person, so thank you for attending. If you are missing a section of today's workshop, you guys, if you have to leave for class or any other reasons, it's okay. We're going to record it so we can post the presentation on Canvas for you guys, and you have access to the recordings as well. So today's workshop will be about foundations of multidisciplinary teamwork. As you guys know, it's the first workshop before the new year, and then we'll have 2 more, and we'll discuss that as well. Okay, so today's agenda, as you guys knew, there were some pre-workshop related materials and readings for you guys to get comfortable with multidisciplinary teamwork is. So today we're going to do some activities together in person and online as well. We're going to look at disciplinary identities and how it shapes multidisciplinary teamwork. So we'll have activities where we're looking at different stereotypes that might exist in certain labs, in certain biology groups, chemistry groups, and comparing it across the campus and discussing how these stereotypes affect multidisciplinary teamwork and projects as well, and making sure that we have respect and trust. And we'll touch base on what all of the key characteristics are of an effective team. And then when we're talking about reflecting on the readings that we had, we're also going to talk about what makes an effective team based on the readings, thinking about some of the challenges that may exist, so we can all work effectively together to have a joint vision and have a great production of our experiments and projects in the end. And lastly, we're going to look at our personal working style. So we're going to have an activity with Natasha, and we're going to look at our personalities and how we all have different personalities that we bring to a team and how we can effectively work together, and looking at some of the challenges and opportunities that may exist. So first, we're going to do an icebreaker. For those individuals that are here in person, you're going to click on this red link. If you can type it into your computers, that would be great. For individuals online, I'm going to paste it into the chat, so you can just click on it right here. If I can. There we go. You should see it in the chat, so you can click on that online. And those in person, please click on, try to type the little short link out. It's a very short thing. It's going to pop into a page that looks like, let me show it to you guys. That looks like this. So when you're in there, you might have to actually create a quick little account for yourself with an email and a username. And all you have to do is talk about how you're feeling today with the dog that is in the picture. And the way you can do that, you guys, is if you double click on the screen, it will create a little sticky note. And you can type in your names, and we're actually going to put it into a draw and enter a draw, and hopefully you'll get a little Starbucks gift card. So tell us how you're feeling today. Yeah, of course. I'll pop the presentation for you. Let me switch it a little this way. Okay, I see the activity has decreased on here, so I think we have most of our feelings and how we're feeling for today. I hope for those of you that need a nap, that you have a great sleep tonight and that you come back fresh tomorrow. Okay, we're gonna move on to activity number 1, disciplinary identity. Before I pass it off to Dr. Forsman, I'm going to also show you guys the overplay of how the workshops are going to be formed. So again, today we're going to talk about multidisciplinary teamwork and collaboration and how to communicate effectively within your team. And in the new year, we've also planned workshop number 2, the human-centered research in health. So we're going to talk about how we can bring in patients right from the beginning of a research. And not only patients, but also end users. We're going to talk about design thinking. We're going to talk about community engagement. We're going to have an amazing panel of speakers for you guys, and you're going to learn a lot. Some of you might not have even thought about that specific aspect and how it applies to your research, but hopefully after that workshop, you can think differently as a researcher in your futures as well. And then the last workshop in February, we're going to work towards those conferences that you guys have as a team. So we're going to talk about research dissemination and how to effectively talk to the general public, make your posters, how to make an effective poster and communicate with the general public and not just in a scientific format. and we'll help you with that as well. We're hoping that the library will set up a workshop for you guys, teach you how to actually write an abstract if you have issues with that. In the past, we've had those, and that's really helped the students. And we have, again, lots of winners in the past. So we're hoping that we can make some great posters again this year and have some more winners. So as we know, all of us come from different backgrounds. We're in different disciplines. The Zoom thing is covering it, but we all come from different disciplines. Me, myself, back in the day, my undergrad days, I was in biology, and now for my PhD, I've switched into engineering, but it's still a mixture, so we call it biomedical engineering, even though we don't have biomedical engineering on campus. So we're going to talk about how that really affects our research and how it affects our working style. So with that said, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Forsvin, and she can work on this activity with you guys.
You're just holding it in your hand?
I kind of plugged it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, nice. Seems a bit, never worn one of these for teaching with such a small group. Hi, everyone. My name's Dr. Natalie Forsman, and with the wonderful graduate mentors in MURPH, I've been involved in designing these workshops and ran them in the first year, and then I was on parental leave last year. And this activity and this workshop about working across disciplines is kind of near and dear to my heart, because I teach in the School of Engineering, but I'm not an engineer. So I'm kind of dealing with these issues on a daily basis of how to sort of communicate in a discipline I wasn't trained in. My own training is in communication studies and anthropology. And so really thinking about how teams work together and how we can kind of work across some of those divides. So the activity we're going to do first today is really working. I've actually adapted it. We've adapted it from an activity that is more used to get people to think about stereotypes in a way that we're more used to thinking about, like stereotypes of, gender, culture, socioeconomic status, and how we kind of dispel some of those stereotypes. But of course, that's not the only region of our life where we sort of deal with stereotypes. Within the kind of disciplines that we're trained in, we're trained into something that we can call a disciplinary culture, which is kind of a way of thinking and doing things and asking questions and kind of even defining what counts as knowledge and what doesn't count as knowledge. And when we're dealing with trying to do true interdisciplinary collaboration and research, we have to sort of have some understanding of where different people are coming from and how to sort of effectively work together. So it can be useful to sort of confront some of those stereotypes and some of those sort of power differentials between disciplines, or even just ideas that we might have about what people do in a particular discipline, and sort of try to own some of those stereotypes and say, yes, this is me. This does define kind of how I work and how I think, and also to dispel some of them as well, to kind of get to know each other as individuals as well, because sometimes these stereotypes can hinder collaboration. And these stereotypes come from a variety of places. They can come from outside the discipline in terms of ideas we have as an outsider status. Oh, what do people that study English do? Oh, they must just read Shakespeare all day. We don't really, that would be something that comes from outside, and also inside in terms of, working with our mentors in our classes, the kinds of like hazing rituals you can have in particular disciplines, the kinds of just the kinds of things that become an assumption within that group that others from the outside might not know. So we're gonna start the activity here. How do I advance the slides? This keyboard. Wait, is this my computer? Sorry, I got confused because I brought my computer up here. Oh, that keyboard, perfect, thank you. Because I brought my own laptop with so many screens. So what we're gonna be doing in this activity is we're gonna start off by working individually with a piece of paper. So Megan has some paper that we brought to the workshop. I'd like you to fold your piece of paper in half. And this is just a way to create two columns, nothing too fancy here. So you're going to fold your piece of paper in half and reopen it. And on one side, you're going to write the heading I am. And on the other side, you're going to write the heading I am not. And then down the middle of your piece of paper, I want you to write the word but. So that's just the first little piece of setup. I'll just give everyone a chance to get their piece of paper, start this origami activity. So I just want to remind you that for this activity, we're talking about identity, but we're trying to keep the conversation on disciplinary identity. Other facets and qualities of your identity might come into the discussion as well, because certain disciplines might have you know, more people that identify as women or men or something like that historically. So those things can come in, but we're going to try and focus on the disciplinary identity in this activity. So once you've kind of set up your page with that I am not, and the but down the middle, I want you to write 5 statements. And the statements are going to take the form of I am something, but I am not. So keeping those statements focused on your academic discipline identity, your I am statements can take a form of something like, I'm a mechanical engineering student, but I am not. And in that I am not statement, I want you to think about a kind of stereotype that comes with that disciplinary identity and try to think about how you're kind of a counterexample to that and how you dispel that. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes to work on that, and then we're going to have a chance to share. You don't have to share everything you write down. So you might write down some things that feel a little bit more private and other things that feel more like you want to share, but I'll give you that time now. What we're going to do next is you're going to have a chance now to sort of talk about what you've come up with. Maybe you'll come up with more ideas as you get into a discussion. So what we're going to do next is there we go. Oh, oops, sorry, going the wrong way. We're going to now place you within your discipline cluster. So we have some kind of clusters of disciplines within MURPH. There's some disciplines that have more people than others, so some have been sort of clustered together. And so you're going to have a chance to share with people that are in the same discipline with you, or at least a similar discipline, like the sciences, for example, instead of engineering or computer science. And once we place you into those groups, what we want you to do is make sure that each person in the group has a chance to share 2 statements from their sheet. And we'll start with that sharing part where everyone else is just kind of quietly listening to the sharing before we kind of get into the discussion. So after each person has a chance to share, there's some discussion questions here on the slide for you to focus on. First, thinking about what statements from others resonated with you. Did you know about this particular kind of stereotype, or does it come as a surprise to you? Did you know that that stereotype existed? And then I also want you to develop that discussion into thinking about, where did you learn these kinds of stereotypes or these ideas about what is the right or the normal ways to behave or study or work or ask research questions within your discipline? Was it from a formative first-year course? Was it from, you know, professionals that you knew in that discipline as a kid? Was it media representations? Kind of where did you get those ideas? Who taught you this knowledge? And then after group has had a chance to discuss a bit, we're going to ask for a whole room discussion where the different discipline clusters come back together, and we'll discuss. So have 1 or 2 key discussion points that you're sort of ready to share with the group as a whole, which go in this kind of format. First, providing the class with an insight about your discipline. How do you think, do research, or ask questions? And then secondly, dispelling a stereotype. And how would dispelling the stereotype make working with your discipline more productive? So kind of sharing who you are and pushing away one of those stereotypes. So we're now going to move into those discipline clusters. So this is how we've grouped you. And then what we're going to do, just so we don't have tons of Zoom overhead, is for the folks that are joining in over Zoom, you're all going to be grouped together. So we'll just mute so we don't have to hear your whole discussion. And then we'll hear from you in a moment as well. So Megan, will you help me sort of group? Beautiful. Okay, great. So in terms of in this room, maybe what we'll have is we'll have the nursing and human kinetics group sort of gathering in that-ish corner, the sciences group over here, an engineering and engineering and computer science kind of group here? Oh, engineering's by themselves, and then a psychology group. Perfect. So kind of following this format. So you'll want to just grab your stuff, at least your piece of paper, but maybe all your stuff, get up and move. So nursing and human kinetics there, then the sciences, then engineering, and then psychology. All right, so hopefully every group has something to share. Maybe you didn't get to the full, but hopefully every group can now share. If it's even like the most interesting thing you heard in terms of as an I am not statement. So if we're gonna go through the room, and each group can share something that was insightful from the discussion, and then some stereotype that they can perhaps dispel from having that discussion. So we'll we'll just go in the order of the groups as they are on this slide. Maybe starting with the nursing and human kinetics students.
Human kinetics, the main stereotype we can think of is how a lot of people think we're really healthy and really athletic, which is not always the case. I certainly am not an athlete. I was never coordinated enough to do sports. So that is like the human anatomy side of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And then for nursing, I said that a lot of people think that most people go nurses from, but there's so many other avenues. Maybe even up to like nursing.
And if you could kind of guide us all in dispelling, or sorry, that was kind of dispelling the stereotype, but like one insight about your discipline, what someone should know about working with people from kinetics or nursing.
Human kinetics is definitely a wide range of people. Like there's a lot of people who join the program from the athletics as well. So there's also the side of people who just really want to learn about the human body.
So that kind of passion for the human body and that interest really shines through. Thanks.
But we're all very different.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything about nursing or?
You know, like it's really similar, like just the fact that there's so many different things that everybody wants to, like everyone is different in our like,
Thank you. Okay, we'll go next to the group from the sciences. Would that be you two?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So our insight was that people in the science program tend to view things from a medical perspective and how it affects the human body. And then the biggest stereotype we have is that we lack personal life.
Thank you. Should we go through all these and then the Zoom groups can share after? Or okay. Oh, okay. Do you have some comments from them to sort of add it? Oh, okay, we'll wait for them afterwards. Okay, how about next from the group from engineering?
So we said we're both mechanical engineering students, and we're not actually bad at writing like everyone thinks engineers are. It's just typically when we write, like a lot of our written work is things like lab reports or like technical things that need to be concise and to the point. So we don't actually have to put that much effort into it. But then when we are required to do so, like in English courses, then I feel like we're better than people give us credit for. I think you would know.
I teach those courses, so like, yeah, there's definitely a different kind of writing required, and when it becomes your focus, of course, it's something that you're able to do and can bring unique strengths to as well, right? In terms of that precision. And then finally, the group from psychology.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say mine since it was so great. Yeah, it's I'm a psych student, but I'm not a girl. Because the stereotype is that, you know, all psych students are girls. Yeah.
Anything else to share?
Does that make sense to everyone?
For one of our I said that things that are not in arts. But in some sections, I'm not analyzing you, like when you're talking to all the time.
Nice. And then in terms of one kind of insight about your discipline, is there anything you want to share in terms of helping others kind of understand how you work in your discipline, what kinds of things you're interested in, or if there's
I
anything
think there's so many like different choices that you can have. Different interests, like research interests, or different sort of psychology and not everyone has to go into therapy.
Yeah, I would maybe just build on that and add separately that a lot of the standards for research today in the psychology are, you know, very quantified, and it's very quantifiable work that we do, and it's like they try to make it as rigorous as possible. So it's not necessarily adhering to like, you know, like the field stereotypes that people would initially think of when they, conceptualize that idea of research.
So the like psychoanalytic tradition is not what everyone is doing in psychology, and it's much more along the quantitative side now,
Well,
and
and
kind of
that's
understanding
like,
that.
very few people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Megan, did you want to share anything that came up from the chat?
Online student Dawson says, I'm a biochemistry student, but I'm not a math scientist. We all think chemists are the math scientists. I'm a psychology student from Madison, but I'm not completing a degree. Psychology is not useless. And Ashish, I'm an engineering student, but I'm not into cars. And I'll share mine as well from back in my biology days. I'm a biology student, but I'm not going to medical school. Everyone thinks biology is just for med school. There are other avenues.
Yeah, I can share mine. My professional background is a dietitian, so you can imagine the stereotypes we get from that. So I'm a dietitian, but I don't analyze what you eat when you go for dinner or something like that.
Awesome. Great. So before we just kind of wrap up this activity, hopefully this activity has helped you kind of reflect on the specific lens that your discipline brings, both in terms of the kinds of ideas that outsiders might have about your discipline, but also coming from the inside. Every discipline comes with its own language, its own kind of technical terms. So when working in a multidisciplinary team, sort of remembering that you might need to define some of those terms. And that's where those are the shorthands within a discipline that might not transfer outside. It has an ontology, a collection of the objects that kind of that discipline studies, and an epistemology, which would be like a theory of how to study those things as well. And then of course, a collection of methods and tools, theoretical perspectives. So these are all the things that might just be sort of implicit to you in terms of your enculturation into your discipline, that when working in a multidisciplinary team, you need to think about how to translate some of those pieces to others. So hopefully just that little bit of reflection helps you think about how you might do that. So we're gonna now, and actually there was just one more image that sort of was showing some different kind of professors and disciplines talking about, and across different disciplines, kind of defining what counts as worthwhile research. So someone in history says, back up your work with at least 2 first-hand sources, such as photos, documents, and artifacts. You can check items out of the campus museum. Or someone in marketing says, I want you to choose a modern product that's selling well and critique the marketing techniques involved. You can just even see from the types of projects how that kind of reflects those different epistemologies, theories about what is knowledge, how do we get that knowledge, and that sort of thing as well. So we're going to now move on to our second activity, which is going to be run by Megan, talking about how to work effectively within a multidisciplinary team.
Okay. So we talked about how there were some pre-readings before you guys came that hopefully you had a chance to take a look at. So we talked about how there are different elements that can make up an effective multidisciplinary team and how there might be some challenges. So that's what we're going to discuss in this section. So challenges that we might experience. We know that in multidisciplinary research, we're going to have researchers that are going to have to learn another section, another discipline's vocabulary, methodology, and techniques. So you guys are working in groups of 2 or 3 for this specific MURPH program. And so there are going to be times where you have different pieces of writing. You might have to edit each other's work, take a look at what kind of methods you guys are using. So you're going to be swapping different disciplines. So it's important to understand, again, that we come with different backgrounds and there's different methodology and vocabulary that we use. And we also know that multidisciplinary research requires researchers to be specialists. So we have to be specialists within our own discipline and what you're specifically working on in the project. And you have to, again, be able to shift your perspective easily and continue to learn things in new ways. So be able to work together and be flexible. And that's going to require a lot of effort and investment of time. We know that. And your research is also going to be involved. If you're working on research, you have to have trust again. And you have to trust one another's approaches and have a mutual respect. Trust and respect are the main key components in teamwork. And it's not going to, again, work if one discipline is perceived as superior to the other. We're all equals and we're just trying to effectively work together so we can lead to amazing results in the end. So again, some of the challenges that were talked about in the readings that we want to make sure that are highlighted, or that sometimes we might lack a unified objective. Again, that end vision and goal, you guys, within your teams is really important. So that's why it's important to have communication. Poor communication can often lead to that lack of vision. So if you're communicating not only within the partners, but with your PIs and have meetings a lot of the times with everyone in the team, it's going to lead to great results. And inability to resolve conflicts. Again, if there are conflicts, if you have great communication, that's going to be able to resolve that conflict. So communication comes back and again in the loop. And inequality, again, we have to have that trust and creativity and participation within everyone in the group. And that's how it's going to be an effective multidisciplinary team. So what we're going to do is we're going to answer some questions if they pop up here. So the first question, we're going to reflect on some of the readings that we had, and we're going to talk about the key characteristics of a multidisciplinary team that jumped out at you from the readings. And the next question is going to be, what's one key characteristic of a great multidisciplinary team that you have experienced in the past that led to a group success? You might have experienced it not only in the MURPH program, but other group work that you have done for your classes as well. So I'm going to, again, paste this link here in the chat group for our online students, and you can click on here and it will again take you to Mural, and you can use 2 sticky notes. So 1 sticky note for the first question and a second sticky note for your second question. And then we can all see what's on there and discuss it together as a team. Natalie, for you, if I close the link, is it going to save everyone's old like dog input pictures? Okay, I'm just screenshot it. We will have some repeats, you guys, which is totally fine. That shows that we all think, for example, that trust is important. Okay, some that I'm seeing here that are very important. I'll read them out as they come in, you guys. Working together on goals rather than segregating between tasks. Again, it's really important to have that shared vision. A lot of the times, even within the MURPH program, we have teams that are not maybe effectively working together, and in the end, they try to make something come together, whereas you can work from the beginning stages and build on what you're learning together. The whole point of the program is to learn from each other, maybe even take a little peek into each other's labs and see what techniques and methods we're using. Effective communication, yes, that's coming up a lot. Trust and respect. Have a clear leader who demonstrates shared power and listens. Listening, yes. Often, sometimes in teamwork, especially in group projects and school, it's important to have that one person that splits the tasks, keeps everyone on the task, and make sure that everything is getting done on time. Respect, a team with a variety of personalities and ideas. Yes, that can often lead to a lot of innovative thoughts and amazing research. Respect and dignity, effective organization. Organization is very important. A shared team identity, mutual respect again. Effective communication and understanding, a strong leadership who values every person's opinion. Yes. Respect and understanding, respect and value for the team members, engagement and participation. See each other as a team versus someone who is from another discipline. That's very important. You guys are working together to lead to amazing research. That's the whole point. You're working with your PIs, the principal investigators of the studies, so you can achieve their goals as a team together. Effective organization. Great. And besides the ones that you guys picked up from the papers, anything unique that has worked for yourself in the past in your group work? You can paste that here as well. It could be something like bringing donuts to the group work. Go ahead.
Like, so, it's like, so I'll just get back to this example. So last week we were working on a project, and the PI on the project, she was saying that, it's going to really take, we don't actually know how to, resolve this particular research question. It's going to take kind of like all of our interdisciplinary resources to do this, right? More specifically, I think the real answer is like, so she'll come up with something from, her discipline. But then at the end of the day, you want to actually put it back on the people from, like, or from, violence, say like, okay, now can you think of it in a different way from what you've learned, in the past answer? I'm not really sure, what one word would encapsulate. I was trying to think of that myself. But something like, the objectivity to take yourself out of, the discipline and be able to like remove yourself from like those existing conceptions.
Exactly. I totally know what you're saying. Yeah, that's very important. A lot of the times in our lab as well, like we might have my PI might have her own specific expertise in the field, but then when we're discussing with other biologists or chemists, then you have to take yourself out from your discipline. So she has to start thinking like maybe from a chemist's point of view to start thinking how their field applies to the specific project to optimize the project as a team.
Yeah, if I were
That's
gonna
very
sum
true.
it up, maybe I would say something like complicated.
That's amazing. That's true. Yeah, it's very important, multidisciplinary research. Compromising when people have different ideas and preferred methods. Yes. And Natasha is going to talk about that next. When we all have different personalities, compromising and being patient and understanding that we all have different ways that we work. And that's going to be very important as well. Okay, I think we have lots of great sticky notes on here. Thank you, guys. So what I'm going to do is pass it on to Natasha, and we're going to talk about our personalities and how we're all different.
So our next exercise really is just a fun way to kind of think about our differences in a sort of a, I guess, non-confrontational way, because we all know that our personalities on a personal level are slightly different, but our personalities, or another word you can use, our preferences and how we work can actually really influence how we work in a group setting. So it's really helpful to understand the various individuals that you're working with so that you can actually work well together as colleagues. So certainly when working in group situations, even when you begin your careers, once you recognize these strengths and sometimes your own inner weaknesses, it can be really helpful in leadership positions and moving forward and achieving your goals and objectives. So when you're working towards, say, completing something like in this situation, like a research project, you start to realize that certain individuals in your group may be more skilled at certain things than you are, and they may be the best person to perform particular actions. And so you'll see kind of what I'm talking about in a minute. So just by recognizing the differences with individuals you work with, you can sort of maybe organize your group a bit better. So when we're talking about preferences though, like I don't want you to think that one type of preference, and we're using shapes as a very simple way to illustrate these differences, that one shape is better than another. That's not true. Each shape
has particular strengths and they have particular weaknesses. And so basically by identifying these different characteristics of your own personality and perhaps having a sense of how others like to work, it kind of creates a really good work environment. And ultimately, it can lead to less stress and frustration. And I'm sure you've all been in group situations where at times the group work didn't go quite as smoothly as maybe you've liked. And I know in my own career, there's been situations where I've been working with, say, a boss or a manager who at times I became very frustrated with. But through doing a number of these different types of preference tests, I started to understand my boss a little bit better. And I like to just illustrate one example is that I used to have a boss that I'd go have a meeting with her once a week. And I left those meetings completely confused because she was an individual that was the director of an organization, was always just like ideas. And I couldn't follow, she had so many ideas. I couldn't actually follow her thought process. And at times I became very frustrated. And then when I started to learn about myself, I have a very different work preference. So my work preference though is I got to get the job done. Like, how am I going to get the job done? I need to figure out all the steps to get the job done. Whereas she's the idea maker. And so once I understood that, okay, I'm the person that I got to get the job done. And she's the person that comes up with the ideas. And I don't have to do every single idea that she floats by me. I started to think, well, this is interesting because I'm not the idea maker. I like to implement things. And it's kind of like in the MURPH workshops, there was a huge idea of how we're going to create this MURPH program. And Megan and I are the people that have put all the little pieces together to make the program run. And that's what I like to do. So in the end, once I learned these different preferences, it really helped me in my life. So moving on to the shapes. Whoops. So I just want to say that there are tons of different types of these preference tests out there. And there's really no perfect preference test out there. Probably the most validated test out there would be the Myers-Briggs personality test. And if you ever get a chance to do that in your career, I would encourage you to do it because you will learn a lot about yourself and how you work. And a lot of times these different preference tests not only apply to your work life, school life, but they also apply to your home life. So they can be used in those situations as well. So I do want to emphasize though, that these preferences, or today we're using shapes, that, they're not meant to label people. They're not meant to label yourself. People are very complicated, and your preference in how you work or how you play, for example, in your personal life can be very, very different. And in fact, when you look at some of these shapes, you may see yourself in a little bit of all of them. And it may have been challenging to actually sort of pigeonhole yourself into one of those particular shapes. So this exercise is actually meant to be fun and just a way to start thinking about these concepts. So yeah, so we had talked a little, if you kind of read the pre-readings and looked at the different shapes, you'll know that, for example, the star would be an individual that likes to focus on decision and results. Hearts tend to be these individuals that love harmony, socialization, keep things peaceful in the group, don't like to, I guess, be very confrontational. The diamonds are these big idea makers, and circles like to have, get all the details down and get things done. So with that said, what we're going to do is just maybe you could sit in your groups that you're sitting in now and just kind of talk about, maybe share which shape you think you most identify with. And then what we're gonna do is, and then we'll kind of share this out as a larger group.
Who is like willing to own up to being like the just do it and say you're sorry later person? You know, like that's a really hard thing to own. And if you do experience or have experience working with someone like that, I certainly have. It's like you don't always want to support that person, right? Because it's like a little bit more, has a little bit more of a negative sort of energy to this person who is, you know, self-centered, egotistical, put stock in status symbols and all these kinds of things. It's hard to know how to support that person or how to work with that kind of person. So people had other kinds of ideas, and not that I don't identify with parts of that person myself as well. That's what it like. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear if others have experience working with that shape and how you kind of reconcile parts of that or what are the more negative as well.
I'll just be honest, like, since it sounds like no one else is a star.
We have a star online.
I don't think I even read the description fully, but it does sound like that kind of encapsulates me a little bit, so.
It's not a bad thing.
Star.
Yeah.
There's definitely qualities that I would say I am from the start, like confidence in yourself and your opinion. There are, I feel like you can be one of these things and not the other, for sure. There's qualities here that don't I have.
Yeah. So some of the things that I've read about how you can support these individuals is that, and you can correct me if you agree or not, but something might be like, okay, so I'm definitely a circle and I'm detail oriented and get into these little bits and pieces, and that can drive some people crazy. So for a star, they tend to like the big, like they want to know the goal, they want to know the big picture. They want to know the, okay, what's the end goal gonna look like? I don't necessarily care how we get there. They know that you have to take those steps to get there, but maybe don't want to be involved in every single detail. And maybe I'm like the circle is better at taking care of those minute details because we're trying to think of everything. They need to know, they need you to be succinct. So don't go on and on and on and on, just get to the point. So that tends to be what this shape is characterized by in this particular, I guess, model of preferences. So it's not right or wrong. It's just, you may or may not agree. So what did you get online?
So we have Andrea, identify most of the circle. We have a lot of circles. I think I come across between a circle and a diamond. But identify most of the circle. Madison says, I would consider myself to be hard. I think I'm team oriented and reflective, and I enjoy hearing other perspectives and opinions. And I think I'm more of a combination of a star and heart. Circle, heart, diamond, so no diamond. Who was a diamond? Perfect. Let me give one diamond.
The thing about the diamond says changing from day to day, it's maybe indicative of diamond or when you diamond.
That's amazing. So you're definitely a diamond.
Interesting. Okay, any further comments about that? Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the workshop piece. So the next thing I just want to kind of go over is following our workshops, we do a little bit of post reflection exercises. So you can go back to your teams and think about kind of what you learned today, maybe get to know your team members a little bit better. Generally, or in the past, when we've had the opportunity to be all in one room, we had you break up into your teams and talk about your shapes and, you know, what your preferences were and, you know, how you can work together just to sort of open up that conversation. So I would really encourage you to do that. So setting up a meeting with your teams and going through that. Another piece of the post reflection workshop is that you're going to meet with your team And there's a number of questions that we've assigned you to sort of discuss, like what are some of your strengths and weaknesses as a team? How can you overcome some of your potential challenges and perhaps differences, and just sort of set up a discussion around how you'll ensure that there's mutual respect within your team. And I know this sounds like, oh, it's an assignment, but it's an assignment that can be really useful before you start any type of research project, especially a multidisciplinary research, like establishing that respect from the very beginning, so that things stay positive within a team. And just sort of, you've sort of talked about this before, but hopefully discuss a little bit more about what you hope to learn from each other. So maybe just set some goals, like maybe it's like having the opportunity to go into if they work in a lab setting, go into that particular lab setting, really get to know the work that your partners are doing, so that you just kind of get a better overall experience and are not working individually. And then there's an individual exercise that you'll go through. And finally, I'll bring Megan up, and she's going to talk a little bit about the third part of the project, which is the research briefing. So you have until November 30th to complete these particular exercises.
So we do have those post activities online, you guys, and they're also here as well. So it will tell you all about the workshops and what kind of questions we're hoping that you can discuss within your teams. And there's also an evaluation link that we'll get to as well. So, okay, we're hoping to, at the end of this program, to get these amazing public briefing pages from you guys. And some samples have been posted. It's all combined from the previous years, their projects online on the MURPH website. So I will send you guys a link of that so you can see some of the samples and what we're kind of looking for. But what it is, it's a public briefing of your research project. So we're hoping to create a very brief summary and show what your research is all about to the general public. So there's going to be specific components. It's a briefing note, so it's super short, again, concise, written in plain language. We're hoping to share this document with, again, people in the general public, hoping to get some industry members that can join the MURPH program in the future. So you're not sharing it with the scientific community. So you want to avoid any technical terms, and again, keep it really towards the general public and basic understanding. So the purpose, again, the MURPH program wants to use this. We post it on the website. It's a great summary to show what all the different research projects that we have under the MURPH program and how they all vary and how they're all multidisciplinary and hitting that the health perspective and who. So we're, again, writing for the general audience, not in your specific area. So again, you have to think about your words, and we will have specific things that we will modify after your first draft. So a lot of the times we'll have our students that submit this public briefing. Me and Natasha will go take a look, give you some guidelines on how you can modify it. And then you have to actually make sure that your PI gives you the thumbs up that it's good to go as well before you share it with us, because then we have to actually post it on the website and share it with other people. So the specific parts of the public briefing, we want to make sure we have a project title. Don't make this too long, make it interesting, make it catchy so someone from the general public can read it and quickly understand what your project is all about. You want to have a small chunk that talks about the purpose of your project, what it's all about, your research impact, 2 to 3 sentences. You can look at some of the examples from the previous years to talk about why you're even doing that research, the impact that will have in the end. And you want to have one high quality figure for your public briefing. Make sure that it's, again, high quality. Sometimes we've had to hunt people for those. And a brief figure caption under it that we can post on there as well. And a research team testimonial. So the research team testimonial is most often a sentence that's from both team members. So one combined sentence saying why you're part of the MURPH program, what interested you in it, and what you're hoping to gain from it. It's most often the thing that's used at the very end. So try to think about the end testimonial that you're going to have and the main takeaway from the MURPH program. And we'll have your contact information, like your name on there. We'll have the name of the principal investigators as well, and what different disciplines they're from as well. So again, I'll share the link from the previous year ones, but it's a combined PDF of all of the summaries, which is really nice to look at the end. Okay. I think with that, we just have the evaluation link that you guys can click on afterwards when this is posted and give us your feedback on the first workshop. We'll do this after every workshop. And upcoming events. So workshop number 2, again, it'll be in the new year. We do have an actual date set for that. I think it's January 19th. January 19th at the same time, 4 to 6. We will share the room. Hopefully we can book the same room for that one. But again, we have an amazing panel of speakers for that one. So we'll come up with amazing questions from your side, and we'll have a bunch of questions for the panelists on our end as well, and make it really engaging for you guys. And again, last workshop will be sometime in February. We'll give you guys a date when we get closer to that for the dissemination and poster making. For that one, we try to actually print some posters as practice, and hopefully even maybe we can do it online for our students that are online as well. And we try to give each other feedback to actually really work on those posters and make them better before we go to the conference. So it's a practice round, and then we have the conferences. So again, the dates will be posted for those later. And with that, I will finish you guys off. That's it. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Amazing. Thank you to those students online.